Everyone, it's your boy Matt here. It's the 28th of September 2025. I'm making a rant today, and this rant is designed to try and convey some ideas about ideas in behavior science and explaining it in the context of trauma and what it is to be traumatized. I'm making this because I've had to deal with a lot of pussyfooting behavior from veterans. And I'm going to give this with a warning label to begin with. First of all, if you're a veteran and you're watching this, you might get offended, and this isn't intended to be something which is made to offend people. This is made because I've had to deal with some problems, and also to explain my trauma and explain some of the silliness I've seen in people who play up their traumas. And also what it is to be traumatized and all those things. So what creates trauma is a combination of, you'll have it's an adverse event which provides a negative reinforcement, or it's a event which can create, it's when something, where there's a punishment. So I'll take that back. It's not negative reinforcement, it's punishment. So you conduct a behavior such as you walk through a field, you step on a landmine, your leg gets blown off. From now on, you're going to look at fields potentially, and you're going to be looking for landmines because you've learned that fields may contain landmines. And the behaviors which become associated with you looking to protecting yourself from, if you're stuck in an environment where there are a lot of landmines, you're going to start looking at fields more often and more frequently. You're going to build this process where you're constantly on the lookout for threat. From now on, fields look a little bit more intimidating. If you're a farmer and you're in the field, your level of arousal will go up, and that's a symptom of PTSD. Eventually, after you're in that environment for a long enough time, you will have you'll become inoculated, and the response will go away. Okay? So that's PTSD in general. For the most part, a lot of veterans, they engage in behaviors such as getting stuck in victimhood stories, or they begin doing things like having a dog around them as their therapy dog, and they get all these hugs and kisses from everyone because they're so traumatized, and so they get stuck in this victim narrative, and that allows them to keep doing it. Or they find a financial thing or an identity thing in the community, such as being part of a veteran's art project, and now they're always going to be traumatized because the process of that trauma reinforces upon itself, and now they're stuck with it. Okay? So that's trauma. So for example, having your friends die around you often isn't very traumatizing, believe it or not, because it happens randomly. It doesn't get that randomness might create stronger associations because a variable reinforcement schedule is the most common, the most powerful form of reinforcement schedule. But just because your friends died while you were in your platoon overseas does not mean that for the rest of your life you should feel traumatized. And and what I find, and this is what really pisses me off, is where veterans start talking about things in levels of trauma without understanding the behavioral reinforcements of what causes the trauma. Because there's like a pecking order. It's like, I got traumatized because I was in the front lines and my friend died there, whilst I was responsible for making the life and death decisions over the radio, and when I fucked up, someone very much did die, right? Except I had to do this over a large amount of people. That's why people who, I have given an example which might be relevant to a certain dog-owning art individual, but it makes a lot of sense how he did become traumatized, and his trauma is not any less valid as it occurred than someone who was in the front line and had their friend die. Now, my trauma is the result of both a lot of instances where punishment has taken place and also a lack of reward for any positive effort, like any effort I put in. So the reason why I often do fuck all, right? It's like, and not particularly motivated to do a lot, is because I learned that there are structural forces in places which make my life very difficult, right? And take away whatever fruits of the labor that I produce. And that means, and because I understand that these forces are in place, and my life doesn't really move on until they are removed, my thing is that I put in the appropriate amount of effort to live a life which is bearable for me, right? This is how I deal with the results of this process of conditioning, right? So when veterans look at me and they're like, hey man, you need to do that discipline equals freedom thing, like the rest of us, I go, well, gentlemen, I need a hip replacement, my hand's broken, I have all these issues with surveillance, I have all these issues with, I have all these things going on, and you can't discipline equals freedom your way out of structured oppression. You just kind of have to either fight it, which I've been doing, and also coordinate other people to fight it as well. And that's what I've been doing. Your friend's dying and you not being able to get over it does not mean that your trauma is more valid than a person in my position. And I want to say that as clearly as possible. I also want to say that the correct thing to do with trauma is to not constantly fucking talk about it, and not provide opportunities to reimagine it and rethink about it. You don't want to block it. When you have feelings and flashbacks, what you want to do is that you want to accept it, make room for it, and let that thought pass. If possible, you want to then move on to something else. One day I might make a video series on how to deal with that. There's some excellent work online, I'm sure. Look up, read The Happiness Trap by Russell Harris. Great book. It's not exactly designed for trauma. Cognitive behavior therapy, when you see a therapist who is actively providing cognitive behavior therapy, not just having a chit chat, because if they're just having a chit chat with you and just debriefing, they're likely actually making it worse because they're reinforcing it and having those memories and that shit go back. What you want to do is you want to either you want to have an extinction response. You want to have the traumatic thing which did that terrible thing, and the things which trigger you no longer trigger you if possible, if it's a problem for you. So if you're a farmer and you're afraid of landmines because you were in a field and your legs got blown off, well, you just need to chill in the field for long enough until you feel comfortable that your legs aren't going to blow off. If you live in a city, you don't need to worry about that. So don't even bother with the extinction thing, because first of all, it's okay to have lifelong trauma. You can manage it. You don't need to necessarily confront it. That's fine. But secondly, a lot of the narratives that have worked their way into our culture for how to deal with trauma are not useful. There's this idea, we have this thing are you okay days in Australia and things like that. We just need to talk about mental illness. And it's okay. It's good. I'm glad that there's social understanding. But what you don't want to be, if you're traumatized, you don't want to keep activating that trauma unless you're trying to get that trauma, unless you don't want to just experience it over and over again for the fun of it. And you don't want to create a hierarchy of trauma, and it's actually, having your friends killed is not as traumatizing as people make it out to be from a behavior science perspective. That's going to make a lot of people angry because there's grief and all those terrible things around it. And it is a terrible thing. I'm not saying it's not a terrible thing, right? What I'm saying is that there are all these different ways of being traumatized, okay? And I find that people saying that my friend died is often put up as this social currency. It's not actually as traumatizing compared to other ways people can get traumatized as you might think. And that's my rant for today. Have a lovely day, everyone.